What's up, y'all? Alvin here. This is Question and Answer, episode 5.
I tell the good jokes.
All right, so first off, I just want to thank you guys for keeping this thing going. I had no idea there were that many questions out there that y'all wanted me to answer. So just keep asking. Once again, I got way too many this week to answer without this video being an hour long. So if I don't answer your question this week, feel free, ask me next week, and maybe I'll get around to it. But I want to thank everybody for every one of the questions. All right, let's get into it. All right, so first up is a question from Dogs and Fishermen. Oh, Dogs and Fishing Graham? Not sure. Got that wrong, but I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. The question is, have you ever guided a famous musician? If so, when and how was the experience? And I'm trying to remember, but I don't think I have. The closest person I guided to being a famous musician was actually Christopher Guest, who, if you remember, was Nigel in Spinal Tap. So I guess he's sort of a famous musician. And this happened years and years ago when I was still working at the Austin Angler. His assistant called the fly shop because she knew that I was a fly fisherman and Christopher was also a fly fisherman. And he wanted somebody to guide him every weekend for like 2 months because he was in Austin making a movie. At the time, I was guiding on the weekends a little bit, but I was working full time at the fly shop. So I actually said I did not want to guide this guy every weekend for the next 2 months. I was like, I don't know what I'm getting myself into. So I said, how about this? She assured me that he was a competent fisherman and he just needed a little bit of guidance. So I said, he's got a rent truck. How about if we just meet up every weekend and we go fishing? I'll show him the spots. I'll give him a little bit of guidance on what to use and, what's going on in this particular water. We'll just go out and fish together. And we did. And it was awesome. He was a pretty laid back, pretty mellow guy, super funny when he wanted to be funny, but you would never know the caliber of actor, comedian, just all around awesome guy that he was because he was just a super quiet, laid back, mellow guy. Fun times. I do remember afterwards he invited me to come out and fish with him in Idaho. Sent me his info via the fax machine at the fly shop. It was that long ago, but I never took him up on it. I enjoyed the time we had together and I figured, that's enough. Anyway, that's the closest I've ever come to guiding a famous musician. Mr. Turn It Up to 11. Thanks for the question. Okay, so State Line Fishing wants to know, is there, in my opinion, one fly that I would use to target bass and redfish? And yes, there is. There's one fly that I consistently use for both bass and redfish, and that's a Clouser minnow. Pretty much any day of the week you're throwing at redfish or bass, they will take some form of Clouser minnow. So if I had one fly for those two fish, definitely be a Clouser. Thanks for the question. Okay, Baja Roller wants to know, tube flies for bass. Good, bad, any recommendations? I honestly have no clue about tube flies for bass. Hardly ever use tube flies, period. But it seems like it would be something worth trying out. So if you got some ideas, you got some tube flies you tied up for some bass, send them my way. I'll give them a try and we can figure it out together. Thanks for the question. Yaya Killian wants to know, do you think there will be a market for guide fishing invasive species like snakehead in Florida or carp that are just about everywhere? Yes, I do think there's a market for guiding for some other fish besides bass and trout and the fish that we're used to thinking of as game fish that people fish for. Thanks for the question. All right, so J Burke 7 has a similar question about guiding. And the question is, what is your philosophy around a successful guided fly fishing gig with a client? Specifically, are you comfortable with providing a fishing excursion if no fish are actually landed? He goes on to say, I asked because I love fishing even if I don't catch anything, as long as I am guided by someone who has good knowledge, skills, technique, and experience. So, this reminds me of a conversation I overheard years ago when I was a guide in Colorado. One of the younger guides was telling one of the older guides, like, man, I feel so bad when my clients don't catch anything. And the older guide says, dude, you're going to have to get over that. And I thought it was funny, but it really is true. We, as guides, usually do not guarantee fish. And the service that we provide is, I think, much more valuable than the body count at the end of the day. If you learn from your guide, I think that's money well spent. Now, if there's a situation where I'm pretty sure my clients are not going to catch any fish, the water's blowing out, it's too windy, whatever, if conditions are just really not conducive to catching fish, or if it was just a day, I wouldn't go fishing on my own. I usually try to encourage my clients to reschedule the trip if at all possible. So most of the time when we're going out, I feel like there is a chance that we're going to catch fish. There's a lot of factors that come into play, everything from the conditions to the skill level of the anglers. We've all seen that old sticker, guide, not God. So we can't make it happen, but we can certainly facilitate it. So I do feel good if I feel like the chances of us actually catching fish are there and we go out and for whatever reason we come up empty-handed. I do feel like at the end of the day, I'm still providing a worthwhile service to my clients, and hopefully the experience is still worth the money. Now, you can't make everybody happy all the time, but that's just the way of life. So anyway, I hope that answers your question. Kind of, it's a tough call sometimes, but yeah, the guided trip is more than just the body count at the end of the day. Thanks for the question. Okay, so I got a ton of questions on Instagram, but I did get some questions on Facebook and Twitter, and I really want to encourage you guys to go and follow me on Facebook and Twitter. So if you haven't, get over there. But if you ask a question right now on Twitter, I'm definitely going to answer it because there's not too many of them. So here goes. Phil H. wants to know, how did you make the leap from 9-to-5 traditional employment to fishing guide? Now, I personally was super lucky when it came to that. I was working in the fly shop full time. I was actually the manager of the shop. So I was on a salary. I was going to get a paycheck every week, no matter what. And while I was working at the shop, I started guiding. So first I was just guiding on my days off. So I worked 7 days a week forever. Then when the guiding really kind of started to take off more, I would take off days during the week to guide. And my boss and I, we had a little formula that we worked out where if I was guiding on a day when he was paying me to run the shop, I would get this much. And if I was guiding on my days off, I would get this much. So I got to where, I was guiding sometimes 3 or 4 days a week, working at the shop 3 or 4 days a week, and this went on for months and months. And I was able to build up a really good clientele. I mean, I probably did that for close to a decade. The fly shop closed down. And instead of getting another fly shop job, or, we thought for a little while about trying to keep that fly shop going, I just decided to guide full time. So I sort of hit the ground running. I already had a website that I put up in 2001, already had a pretty good client list, and I was a young guy. I didn't have any bills. I didn't have any responsibilities, no kids, no wife, no mortgage payment. So I just grinded it out. And from 2004 until now, it's just been sort of a process that I just kind of stayed committed to. And here I am. All right. Hope that answers the question. We could talk about that one for another hour. Maybe we'll talk about it more in the next video. All right, here's a couple from Facebook. Josh Canton wants to know, do you have any bucket list fishing destinations? Honestly, not really. I mean, and I say this all the time, but it's true. I'm just stoked to be able to go fishing on one of our local fisheries and have a good day, whether that's the coast, whether that's the river. I really look forward to having a good day on one of my fisheries that I get to fish all the time. Now, I have been fortunate enough to fish in a lot of those bucket list destinations, the Seychelles, Argentina, Chile, a lot of the big name streams in the Western U.S. So I would love to get back to any of those places. If I could think of, I'll give you two places I've never fished that I would like to fish. One would be New Zealand. The other would be Mongolia. So I guess those are my bucket list destinations. I'm not really doing too much to make either one of those happen. So who knows? But fortunately, I'm really happy, really lucky to be able to go and fish and have a good day on either one of the Central Texas rivers or the Texas coast. Thanks for the question. Heidi wants to know if I'm ever coming back to Colorado. Probably, maybe even this year. I got a couple other folks asking me when I'm going to come to Colorado, so I got to get back up there. If you guys don't know, I guided for 10 summers in Colorado, so I really miss being there, and I have to admit that I miss the people that I hung out with probably more than the fishing. I made some great friends when I was guiding there, and I probably would have quit guiding up there 5 years sooner had it not been for all the cool folks that I got to hang out with during the summer. That and the nice cool weather during the heat of the Texas summer. Anyway, Heidi, I'm not sure, but I'll be back, and I'll let everybody know. Thanks for the question. Scott Riffner wants to know, what's your favorite weight rod for fly fishing for bass and redfish? I'm assuming what's my favorite weight for either one. I would say for bass, probably a 6 weight. Redfish, definitely an 8 weight. If I could only have one to fish the two, it would be a 7 weight. Thanks for the question. All right, let's go back to Instagram because we got so many questions. And speaking of Colorado and guiding in Colorado, I got a question from my old buddy John, See Me Fish, and he wants to know, what would you wish you knew when you started guiding that you know now that influences your success? And I think, and I sort of knew this, but I wish that I was a little bit more positive and positive in that it was actually something that was going to work out. There was a lot of, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make a living at this. I'm not sure if this is a long-term career proposal for me or if I should be thinking about doing something else. So I would say I would have given myself a little bit more positive. Yes, this is going to work out. You just got to stick with it. You just got to grind through these slow times, through these tough times, and make it happen. I've had a couple other folks ask, like, what advice would you give somebody who was just starting out? And I would say, just make sure that this is something that you want to do. And if it is something that you want to do, then you just got to stick with it. The thing is, success does not happen overnight. Sometimes success does not happen in a decade. But if it's something that you really want to do, stick with it. You may never be rich or famous, but if you're doing something that you love to do every day, it's an old cliche. You'll never work a day in your life. But it's true. You just got to stick with it. So that would be what I tell myself. It's going to work out, dude. Just stay with it. Thanks for the question, John. Another one, speaking of guiding in Colorado, got a question from the Austin Angler, my old buddy Miles. I didn't know you were back in Colorado. Miles wants to know, am I coming to Colorado this year? Lots of snow right now, hopefully good water this summer. Maybe I'll be there. All these great offers, how can I not go back? All right, I'm looking at the time. This video is going on way too long. I'm gonna have to cut a bunch of this out. So I'm gonna answer one more question. And that is from Beach to Bay Guide. And the question is, how do you find a balance between guiding, travel, and home life, marriage, and family? I am a traveling guide as well as am constantly working on this myself. Other than being lucky enough to have an understanding wife, do you have any tips or tricks? Thanks as always. Man, that is really a tough one. Like you said, I am fortunate. My wife is very understanding. I met my wife and I was a guide, several months out of the year in Colorado, the rest of the year in Texas. Now I spend the whole year in Texas, but, home is in Austin and I spend months on the Texas coast. So I'm traveling around a little bit, at least now I can come home on the weekends. Like I said earlier, you just kind of have to decide, is this really what you want to do? There's going to be sacrifices, but I feel like at the end of the day, the sacrifices are worth it. Or one way I was fortunate is that I was able to make a living fishing close to home. Going to Colorado during the summers was just not going to be sustainable for having a family and doing this long term, unless my family was going to Colorado with me, which is one option. You may look into that, taking your family on the road with you when you go wherever you're going to fish. But it wasn't easy at first. Austin, Texas is not known as a fly fishing destination, but I got to where I was guiding as much as I wanted to on our local waters, fly fishing for bass. And fly fishing for bass has become a thing now, but back then it was, it's kind of off the map at that point in time. But I just kind of stuck it out, did some other stuff in between to kind of make ends meet. But, always like that was my main thing, was this fly fishing gig. Over time, I don't know if I was just lucky or if times were just changing, but now we've got tons of people who want to warm water fish, who want to saltwater fish. And so now I can basically stay home and do this job. You may have to get innovative. Like I said, take your family on the road with you, figure out how to fish somewhere locally, or I don't know, move somewhere that you and your family can be together and you can still work as a guide. I guess if I was wanting to be a movie star, I probably would have moved to LA. It probably would have been a lot easier than living in, I don't know, Austin is probably a good place now to be a movie star, but you get the drift. If I can do anything to help you, reach out to me, send me a DM, and I'm here to help. But thanks for the question. I feel your pain, and I want to wish you all the success in the world. All right, everybody. I want to thank you for watching this once again. If you enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, all that YouTube stuff, it really does help me out. I'm having fun doing this, and I feel much more connected when it's sort of a two-way conversation, not just me talking at the camera. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next video. And as always, good luck on the water.